All righty. I think we should get started here. Thank you everyone for being here. I think 18 is a good number. It's a very good group. Um, prepared a little thing here because otherwise I was just going to ramble. But yeah, so for like honestly, thank you for being here. I think I'm very excited about this. I've spoken a little bit with people, and I think we all have similar ideas. I think we are all in the right place, and I think this is going to be a very beneficial Zoom session. I'm super stoked to have Ace here. I think he's the best brain for this. I think he's going to talk about everything I want to know, and I'm sure everyone else want to know. I am stoked that there are these many people here, so that I think when 2021 hits, we're going to be the first cohort of visual smiths to like roll out amazing visuals and just events once when the new year starts. So.
Absolutely. I've been
Super
thinking about
stoked.
this a lot. I think, we're going to basically have like a Detroit super team of visual artists by the
Yes. Yes. So yeah, so big thank you to Ace for being here, for his time, preparing the masterclass, preparing the visuals, just being here. He's a very busy man. Thank you to, I feel like when 2021 hits. Thank you to Akshay and Bailey for helping out with the event production. This wasn't just me or it was other people. And thank you to what is it, the LSA Student Government Budget Allocation Committee. They helped with funding for this to make it happen. And yeah, thank you to everyone here, especially as well. We couldn't do this without an audience of good brains. And finally, MEMCO will be hosting another Zoom tomorrow. Yeah, sorry, we will be hosting another Zoom tomorrow, and this will simply be a makerspace is what I'm calling it. This is just going to be a casual Zoom call where anyone can join and just say, hey, I'm working on this project in Ableton, or like, hey, how do I do this in Ableton, or this in FL Studio, or this in Touch Designer, this in Blender. If you have any project or any question and you want feedback or technical support, please come by. We'll figure out break rooms, or we'll figure out contact information once we're there. I think Ace will be there. Yeah, will you?
I'll be there.
Awesome. So if you have an Ace, or if you have a Touch Designer project that you want to check in on tomorrow, that's another great place. I'll be there with Touch Designer stuff and Ableton stuff. And at the beginning, we'll be showing an hour's worth of footage that is a tutorial on DJing and tutorial on production in FL Studio. These are presentations that we recorded earlier this year. Very good, very educational. But then after that hour, it is simply a hangout space. So the Zoom link for that will get sent via the email you got today, along with being shared in the chat today. And finally, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or use the hand emote. I will be sending out a form occasionally in the chat for you to submit a question. I'll be monitoring that, and I'll feed those to Ace. Otherwise, just DM me a question. If it's a question about like, hey, could you go over that again? Or hey, like, what did you mean by this? Any question is a good question. For the sake of clarification, do not feel anxious about asking a question. Just make sure it gets to me or to Akshay or to Nathan. The three of us will be watching intently, and we will make sure that your question gets asked. With that said, I think we are ready to begin. For those who don't know, Andrew Charles Edman, aka Ace, is I think one of the coolest brains in town right now. I think he's at the forefront of storytelling, the forefront of experience and entertainment and the music industry. I see the combination of sensory experiences as being like the way we experience stories and functions and anything else really. And so the work Ace is doing is very important work. And the fact that he's here sharing that is also important. So I'm honestly super stoked to be here. For example, he worked with Shigeto on a project that is a perfect example of what I think is important work and meaningful work. That is a project. Ace, you can speak more on it. But yeah.
The way home,
Yeah.
that was really deep. It was about a Japanese internment. His grandmother was interned during World War II, and it's a crazy thing to think about in the current times. It was obviously a lot worse before the election, but yeah, I mean, Shigeto's the man. He can play just a single analog synthesizer for 10 minutes. You're like, wow, that was unbelievable. I think I'm gonna cry now. Yeah, so I mean, I'm lucky to work with the people that I do. I think that it's just it's a combination of me getting to the level that I want to be at, where I can make the things happen that I want to, visually at least, and people are taking notice. So that's where I'm at. I mean, to start off with, Masterclass is, I mean, am I a master of controlling, you know, sound and picture and editing? Sure. As far as coding or everything, I'm not the best at literally everything, but I am good at what I do, and I have almost 20 years experience, and I'm ready to teach you guys some stuff. All right. Well, just diving right in. Um, I I don't know how many people saw the initial video for this, but I I wanted to point out just that the MEMCO logo actually moves. Um, and that's kind of like my opening salvo for how much people pay attention to details. I'm sure you probably saw, the visuals by Ace moving. If you saw the MEMCO logo going up and down, then kudos to you. You're on the right track. Okay, let's start with the overview and just jump right in. Um, Essentially, this this picture is a picture from my last show that I did live before COVID ended. It's called Imbue. Essentially, it's a touch designer slash ambient live ambient show where I put um, techno DJs coming out of their element and doing an ambient set with touch designer visual artists who perform with them in the center of the room versus on a stage. This is a concept that I've been working on over the years, and it's kind of like the epitome of everything all together. If you see right here, I don't know if you can see my cursor. You can't see my cursor. Mhm.
Yeah, we can see your cursor.
Oh, you can? Okay. So if you can see right here, that's actually me. And then this is Erica right here. Okay, so moving on. All right, so who am I? First of all, I'm a human. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a machine. I'm flesh and blood. Um, I am not, someone who is really big on vanity. So I'm going to make this first introduction part about myself pretty short. Um, a little bit about my origin. I had a multi-home childhood. I grew up in Los Angeles, Seattle, and Phoenix. I went to Los Angeles Recording School before I went to college. Well, I dropped out of college and went there first. And then I decided that I should probably get a degree. I got my BS in psychology and yada, yada, yada. Eventually, I moved to Detroit to work with interdimensional transmissions, which is basically how I'm here in the first place. Um, there are some parts about my life that I routinely put into all of my work, and that's essentially what I'm telling you here. the forest, the desert, the ocean, and now the Great Lakes are a huge part of my visual style and who I am. Um, like I'm hugely influenced by like Detroit electro and and especially Drexia, underwater. Um, Themes are present throughout everything. Even if I was in Death Valley, I would still probably have some kind of water theme going on, even if no one noticed. Um, and I, I do have some superpowers. Um, my first superpower is dyscalculia, which pairs really well with my dyslexia. I have really, I have trouble with numbers. I have trouble with switching letters and numbers a lot. I've worked really hard over the years to do this, to get over this, and now I'm coding. So it's kind of like a big jump to go from, not being able to pass geometry to, coding geometry. I also have synesthesia. I'm a synesthete. I hear colors, I see sounds. Certain words have specific colors that will always be there. For example, the word wata, like wata igarashi, wata will for always be green to me. And I'll get a little bit more into that later. I am also an amazing, kind of a monk in how I can meditate, mostly because I was diagnosed with ADD in the second grade. And instead of putting me on Ritalin, my mom helped me towards meditation, which, if you do that for 20, 25 years, you kind of develop a calm aspect to the way you are and the way you live and be and feel. And if you don't meditate, I highly suggest it if you want to be in the music industry, because it's extremely frustrating. It's always last minute and there's never enough time for anything. And sometimes, all it takes is for you to not lose your shit. Excuse me, can I say shit? All it
Yes.
takes sometimes. I'm not on TV, right? Um, all it takes is that one moment where you go to your happy zone and you realize everything's going to be fine, and we're just riding, a rock through space, and everything's going to be all right. And that's almost always how I feel right before I do a crazy great performance. Now, moving on, brief work history. This is my corporate side. I have to make money. Music doesn't do it. If I wish I could VJ every single day of the year, if there's anybody out there that can get me that job, I'm all for it. I'm working towards that goal, but at current, I'm the chief marketing officer for two startups, Coco Taps and Quesadilla Mia. One's a quesadilla delivery service. The other one is resealable coconut. These are crazy ideas, and I am all about doing something that both helps people and helps the earth in some way. So that's where I am as far as my day jobs go. I'm currently helping Black Detroiters rebuild, which is essentially a program to try to get um, more Black ownership of land in Detroit. And I've been working with Business Insider, Red Bull Arts, a gym in New York called Will Space, a lighting company. If these things seem disparate, it's because they are. I will get into that later. Some highlights would be Audi. I actually did my first touch designer project for Audi um, in Los Angeles. It was a hookup from Gabe Hall, who I commonly work with, who does movement visuals. And I essentially learned touch designer in 3 weeks, and then flew there and created something based on heart rate and um, the sound of like an R8 engine. And I'll show you guys some of that later. Um, Now, when my first job in video was actually with a residential leasing company called Mark Taylor. Um, I worked there for 5 years. I actually filmed apartments and put like house music to them, and it was so weird that they even gave me this job. But I learned so much from the perspective of always being on time, always being, dressed to impress, always being able to shoot under pressure, get the interview, to be able to, um, put together a press release under duress in like 10 minutes is something that, you know, you really have to do at some point in your life if you're going to take, visual art seriously. Moving on. Um, Now, more pertinent to today, these are my visual art gigs, labels, residencies. Um, of course, Interdimensional Transmissions, The Bunker, my ambient show Imbue, Vitamin R. It's on CJAM. Every single week, I make a brand new a cover photo in Touch Designer. Paxahow, I'm going to be doing some streams for them, Red Bull Arts as well, and constantly working with Shigeto, Science Gallery, Raise the Flag, Drummer B, Lauren, and 141 visual hours. I had to really rack my brain here, and I started doing visuals on May 21st, visual streams. So in 6 months, I've done 141 visual hours and all of these shows, and it's really still kind of insane to me. But I can show you guys how I did it. I can show you how easy it was. I can show you how to come up with your own thing, your own style, and make the stream world a better place, because it's I mean, I've loved some of the streams I've seen, and no hate, but I've seen like on Dirty Bird they have like these like really CGI'd like you know Christmas themed like video game looking things, and it's cute, but it's not it I don't see the meaning. And with as much technology as we have and as many great artists, I believe that we should be pushing the people that are striving for meaning and truly care about their craft. No digs here, no digs. um, Moving on, building a foundation. um, Now, I wanted to show you guys this because this is the first time I was ever paid for visuals. This was in 2014. I was paid 25 bucks an hour, which is pretty crazy, for a 25-year-old kid at the time. And essentially, this kind of serves as my baseline. And I think it should serve as your baseline too. If you're if you're doing visuals at a level where you can get a stream out and you can affect the stream and it doesn't look like complete crap, you should get at least $25 an hour for this. I don't care who you are. Now, this is also to say that I had been doing video since 2008. So, 6 years of work before I even got to my first visual gig. My first round of advice is to say yes to everything, which is essentially why all of my, um, you know, all of my gigs and jobs are so wildly all over the place. Because if it has to do with video, if it has to do with graphic design, if it has to do with art and creating something and learning something new, I am going to be there. And there's just no reason to say no to something, even if you may not exactly be completely qualified. I started my career in video editing, and because someone asked me from Paramount Pictures if I could edit together like a small DVD, like greatest hits kind of thing. And I said, sure, yeah, I can, because I had edited um, I had edited audio for years since I was 14. And I was like, how hard could it be? It's extremely hard. Final Cut is not easy, especially back then. And you know what? I did it. And I started my video career, and I've been editing ever since. I've been editing video ever since. And, you know, just like the Audi thing, I had only spent maybe a week in Touch Designer before that happened, but I said yes. I learned how to do it and I did it. And that's, you know, not to say that I'm some genius. I just tried and I just did a whole lot of YouTubes and learned how to do it. Now, the second point to this is that passion projects have really low budgets. So you kind of have to, if you do say yes to everything, you have to understand that, like the, you know, Black Land Initiative that I'm helping out, like I'm doing that completely for free, but I'm getting a reward back that's better. I'm making a change. And so you really have to weigh out how you feel about something. And there's always something to learn. Like I said, there's, you know, it's crazy how much I've learned from the things that I just never thought I would do and didn't really want to do either. Moving on. Okay, so well, these aren't playing, so that's cool. Essentially, this is Will Space, a video that I did for Andrew Yang that was essentially for May the 4th. He was like on Hoth and a hologram. And the Will Space one is essentially you know, it's like a motion graphic that was supposed to delineate their story, like what day it was and when, you know, what kind of stretching or what kind of exercise they were going to do. I'm not a gym rat. I don't know if you've ever met me, but I am not that guy. But when my friend on asked me to do it, I knew I could, and I knew that I wanted to study movement in general, and this was a movement gym. So I created things in motion. As for Yang, you know, that was completely out of the blue. You know, when I joined Andrew Yang, he had like maybe 100 followers, and you know, when he left the presidential race, he had about 400,000. Not to say that was all me at all, but you know, being a part of something that grows is way more fun than, you know, starting at the top with something where you know, kind of are just another face in the crowd. So that's all I've got to say about that. These things have nothing in common other than I learned something, and I explained all that. Cool. I can't see the chat, so is everything okay?
We're smooth as butter.
Smooth as butter. I like that. Okay, so my second tip of advice is to develop your skills every day. On March 22nd, 2018, I decided to go the Bleeple route and start making a new 3D artwork every day for no reason. Essentially just learning something new and doing it. He had at the time been doing it for 6 years, and he was this, you know, super famous VJ, you know, getting $100,000 to do commercials. And I'm sitting in a basement in Detroit, like, what am I gonna, you know, do with my skills? Because I just moved here from LA, and I had only been doing interviews, and I had mostly been doing, you know, party promotions, and I barely knew anyone here. So this was my solution. I would just work on something every day. Holidays, birthdays, sick days, every day. On Thanksgiving, I was like at the table, literally sculpting turkeys, and you know, putting those in Cinema 4D and putting them on Instagram. in 2 years, I've gone from not knowing how to use Cinema 4D to talking to you guys. And like I said, it's not because I'm that awesome. It's not because I'm that great. I just did it every day, and now I'm here. I definitely get a YouTube Red account. I don't know how you guys spend $10. Maybe it's on Spotify, maybe it's on. But if you want to learn how to do visuals, just get a YouTube Red account, because it's like there's no ads at all, so you can just kind of keep going. And if you go too far and go back, you're not going to get hit with an ad. That's just such a time saver, and it's definitely worth $10 a month. Above all, I just want to impeach upon you to respect the source. Now, as far as the source goes, I think BMG can explain this a little bit better. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. So much for smooth as butter.
Maybe butter just right out the fridge. We just need time to warm up. But still butter.
Okay. Anyway, I can paraphrase. He says to look backwards at our history and to remember where we came from, but to find what we can do moving forward that's fresh and new, while staying true to the original spirit of where everything came from. Now, when it comes to visuals, when it comes to the music that you choose to do for your visuals, respecting the source and respecting yourself are going to get you a lot further than money ever will. I have worked with Insomniac and done EDM stuff, and there is there's a soul within what I have been doing here in Detroit with IT that is just not anywhere else. And because I've followed that path, I've grown and gotten better. And that's essentially the key part of creating real art, of creating art that you respect, that is respected. Now, I'd like to back up a little bit here on this question. The No Way Back streams was on May 21st, like I said, and I wasn't even interested in doing live streams, and I had to figure out 27 hours worth of programming in a week. Essentially, Brendan told me on Sunday, the weekend before, and we came up with a look on Monday, and then I just started going through everybody's streams. Now, I have to give credit to BMG for guiding me, and I think that this is my version of what people should be doing with visuals. It's essentially about subtlety. It's about you're not going over it with a ton of visuals. You're not obstructing the view, unless in a few cases you can. But there's a lot of streams out there. I don't know, 75% of them that I see that are just literally Resolume Arena overlaid on top of the stream, and there's no tack, there's no, it's like the first person of a 6-hour stream, and they're going bananas like it's EDC, and it's like, time and a place. Like, people are in their houses doing nothing, and you have to think about how you can just make the stream better first, and then add your style later. To get into some of this theory stuff, this is a painting that I did. I'm a terrible painter. It's something that I do to get off of the screen. I just have to be creative in some other form or fashion. And I enjoy collaging, um, and this is a whole mess. But when I was creating this, um, I got some of the best advice I've ever gotten in my career as an artist. And essentially, my friend Ruvan uh, asked me, "But what does it mean?" And this was basically before the candles were dripping wax, before there was newspaper on it. It was essentially just like I was trying to do something cool with a cracked mirror and a road and an old skateboarding magazine and some like palm fronds that I found. And when he asked me that, but what does it mean? I started looking at it and I started thinking, wow, okay, so I've got nothing but white skateboarders on here from a 70s skateboarding magazine. Like what was going on in the late 60s, early 70s while, Dogtown was happening and skateboarding was becoming popular. And I found an archive newspaper from the ACLU from 1968, and it is insane for Black people, like you know um, being bussed into schools, being attacked, having their liberties taken away from them, fighting school battles, desegregation. um, you know that dichotomy is what created the meaning of this, because before it was just cool skateboarders. Now it's a reflection of my experience as an African and Irish person in America. And so finding that meaning, you know really starts lending itself to everything. I mean, if you gave me a carrot and you asked me to like whittle like a face, I would have some sort of explanation for what face it was and why. And I definitely implore you guys to ask this to yourself at all times, because if it doesn't have meaning, then are you doing it for the technical, flair? Are you doing it to just to do it? And not everything has to have meaning. A snow day doesn't have to have meaning. But um, as far as your serious works and what you're doing to get ahead, and when you want to push the envelope, ask what it means, give it true meaning, make it mean something to you or something to the audience, and you'll bridge that gap. Okay, I went way too long on that, but hey, here we are. Um, so the first thing I'd like to talk about as far as actual technical skills is inversion. Um, this is a concept that's still kind of hard for me to grasp in my silly brain, but um, it's something that I use every day, and I think it's the most important part of my style and how I do things. And it's like the Swiss Army knife of reality for me. Um, if you guys want to unmute for a second, if if you feel like talking, I'd love to hear some guesses as to how many pictures you see here. Anybody?
5.
20 bucks on 3.
8.
8. Wow. Who said that?
I did.
I can't see you.
I can see you.
Oh, wow. Well, that's cool. Thanks for ruining it. Yeah, so I was going to say the hint is, it's more than 4. But yeah, eight or more. Honestly, I bet you there's more ways that we can figure that I could find out how to use this and how to mask something in a new way with like a Luma key on a Luma key with a blur and a chroma key and an RGB key. If I keyed out everything, what would happen? You know, I don't actually know. And that's the fun part about doing visuals is you get to explore the most basic concepts that seemingly have no end. Um, so let's start with the first four, which is the original, the inverse, the alpha key, and the luma key. Essentially, I don't know how far everyone is, you know. Can we get like a show of hands, I guess, of how how many people have heard of a luma key or an alpha key? Even just the four right there. You guys use luma keys, alpha keys? Okay, cool. So we're good there. I didn't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but
Couldn't tell you what they meant.
say that again.
I said I couldn't tell you what they meant.
Oh, cool. Well, let's tell you what they mean. So essentially, you know, the alpha channel is essentially a 1 and the luma channel is a 0. So 0 is black, right? White is 1. And just essentially when you composite these images on top of each other, let's say that you had quadrant 4 on top of quadrant 1, you know, that would turn into essentially you know, just this white kind of disco ball thing that I made. That this texture just looked like a disco ball to me, so I used it. Essentially, this matters because, you know, if a client sends you a JPEG logo with a white background, you want to animate it, what you could do is, let's say that this was the logo and it's a JPEG and it's got that white part and you want it to be transparent. Well, essentially you could take the luma and composite on top of the white, and the white of this would disappear, which means you would only be left, because the 1 and the 0 would cross each other out. So that would then leave you with a transparent background and an easy logo to animate. So when you composite, you can get all sorts of different results. Compositing has to do, if you've ever used Photoshop and you do lighten, screen, you know, hard light, darken, multiply. These are all various forms of compositing, and you can do the same thing with video. So if, you know, if let's say that you know, Erica's got a white background and I wanted to start putting in, you know, some like some of my own visuals, you know, I can take the invert of her video, and then I can composite it over the top of her actual video, which then leaves a transparency behind it. Does that make sense to folks? But yeah, so that's why it's, you know, it's indispensable as far as things go. I can't tell you enough about just think to invert, composite, and key first whenever you have a problem that can be solved by just, you know, masking something out or taking something out. I can't tell you how many times that I've rotoscoped a whole human being frame by frame, you know, going frame by frame around their entire body, hands, you know, eyebrows, everything, for every single frame for like, you know, 10,000 frames, 2 days of work. And all I had to do was draw an oval around them and move the oval, and the key would have been fine. You know, it's like, there's always a simpler way. Okay, so next I'd like to talk about recursion. Have I ever told you about recursion? Have I ever told you about recursion? Essentially, this is a really terrible joke that I delivered in a deadpan that nobody probably even got. But recursion is more than just repeating. It's more than just like a feedback. It is, you know, it's a data type. It's a way of taking the results of like a string or a procedure and adding that to the next procedure so that, you know, you can solve another problem in a different way or in the same way but faster. um, Sometimes not so fast. Sometimes recursion will kill your whole program. if i um, if I moved, you know, the touch designer screen in front of the Zoom screen while I was doing a screen share. You know, we might have a recursion that actually would shut down, you know, Zoom, maybe my computer, and touch designer altogether for sure. Um, Now, as going back into recursion, um, you know, a procedure is a set of steps based on a set of rules. Um, while the running of a procedure involves actually following the rules and performing the steps. So I found this diagraph which really explains how I do, you know, recursive feedback in Touch Designer. Essentially, you know, if this was the origin source, if this was the feedback, and this was a composite, then you're talking about being able to um, oh, jump the gun there. Then you're talking about being able to expand on the recursion that's happening, the feedback that's happening. You're able to move it and change it and subtract it and add to it. You can go all the way from white to black and everything in between. And you know, that's essentially what you're seeing me do on my screen right now. Um, I'm just taking the feedbacks um, that are occurring, and I'm creating a way out for the recursion. At least that's how I understand it. If anybody smarter than me has a better idea, by all means, let me know. Okay. Creation. This is a doodle that I made a little bit ago. For some reason, it's the thing that I have the most views on this year. And you know, it's very cool because it's that little doodle was actually you know, it was an L system tree, which is basically you know, which is a code based on recursion and how you can essentially create branches and trees based on the original procedure of creating just a single line and then another line. You know, if you guys are into fractals, it's kind of the same thing. I can show you guys how to use the L system later. It's very cool. But yeah, that's how I got this like branching out. Every single part of it is just a different part of itself. Now, I just want to talk about creating for a bit because it's something that I do well. I'm, you know, I get a little shy, a little bashful sometimes about the things I do well. You know, maybe I'm not that good, but creating is something that I do, and I do it every day, and I do it all the time. And I did it before I started my everydays too. You know, it's something that you just have to keep doing all the time if you're going to perform at a level that is, you know, 70, 80 hours a week of work, visuals and playtime. And it's something that you have to constantly be flexing. You have to think about things like when you see a door handle, like, I mean, I really hope that you see a face. I really hope that you see, you know, your next inspiration. I really hope that you see like, you know, like a knob in a tree, and think about what you could fill that with that would change that tree. And you know, it's like I didn't even write anything for this part so that I could come up with that. um, and it's just something that you guys literally have to do all the time. um, i don't I don't mean to say that, you know, all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy, but creating is playing. And so I'm playing all the time. You know, some people get bored. I create because that's all I do, is all I'm really interested in. Um, as far as, you know, being the most creative person on earth, it's just a practice. It's like meditating. It's like breathing deeper. It's like yoga. It's like, you know, these things, they're hard to do. They're hard to constantly do. And, you know, I find myself, you know, in COVID, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to do things, not wanting to go to the grocery store. It's, it's, it's because of creation that I get out of bed to do these things. And I mean, obviously some help from my friends, but yeah, I mean, the idea that on the other side of every step is a new art or a new genre you never thought of, or a new way of seeing things and new perspective, is more than enough to stay motivated and disciplined. And you know, that's my next point, which is motivation is fickle. Do not depend on motivation to get you anywhere. Motivation is really cool when it happens. You're like, wow, this is amazing, you know, like you know, like I've just rescued some kids and now we're gonna do a tour about like how we, you know, survived a fire. Like, cool. And then, you know, 30 days later, you're on the same bus with the same kids, like, and you're still talking about the same fire. Like, how much motivation is gonna be there? That might have been a bad example, sorry. But as far as, you know, discipline goes, discipline is a muscle that you can train. Discipline is something that you can develop, that you can make, that you can uh, give yourself to get yourself to the next level at every stage of where your development is. I just wanted to say from personal experience that searching for muses is an effort in futility. Don't look for muses. The muse is inside you. Find it inside yourself. You can do it. Trust me. And writer's blocks are great for chopping. This is actually a phrase I came up with during COVID, mostly because I'm just constantly suffering from writer's block. But I just keep hacking away with ideas, and they all suck. And I just keep doing them. And eventually, you know, one's not half bad, and then another one's not half bad, and then I showed someone, they're like, you're an idiot, that's amazing. And then you're out of it, you know. But you know, it's like one negative thought turns into two negative thoughts, turns into three negative thoughts, and it just keeps going. And it's really hard to come back out of that if you're not using your writer's block as the, you know, foundation for you to chop your ideas on. My next thing that is really near and dear to me, and this has everything to do with visuals as far as I'm concerned, and that's intention. Now this is more of an installation art, and it's kind of Mickey Mouse, so bear with me. This was a project I did for GT's Kombucha. Essentially, I took a manzanita tree. This thing was like, I think it ended up being 9 feet tall. I wanted a 12-foot one. It ended up being 9 feet tall. I had to get a special truck, and I drove this out to the middle of the desert for lightning in a bottle, and I planted this with a shovel in the dirt. Now, the intention of this is what got me through trying to figure this whole thing out. It took like 2 months, but the on all of these lotus leaves, which is like the like other logo of GT's, I had them write in. Ooh, that slide is out of order. I had them write in, I am grateful for, and then, you know, whatever amount of leaves um, that they wanted to fill out. Some people like just colored the whole thing in and said they were grateful for color. Some people said their mom. Some people said weed. Some people said acid. It was amazing how just being grateful had a recursiveness to it. Um, so this is just some actual footage from it. Wow, you got to go all the way back. That's what happens. We had unicorns, we had old ladies, old men, we had staff coming by, we had DJs coming by, we had people that weren't even that grateful. They just wanted to fill something out, and you know that was fun for them, and it just created something that people could look at and see. It was like a statue of gratefulness, you know, and it was art that we all contributed to, and it was something that meant something, and it was purely based on my intention to make people feel grateful for just a moment, even if their tent had just burned down, or they just missed their favorite act, or their friends are lost. You know, I did find a lot of people that got lost and met at this thing. So, you know, having empathy for your audience is going to do more for you even than them. And having empathy for your artist and who you're creating for is going to make the art that you all create together more meaningful. It is your greatest weapon against mediocrity, and I say that without a doubt. Mediocre things are what? They're passionless. They have no feeling. They don't make you feel anything, right? Um, you know, it's a cold hot dog. Like no one wants it. It's just a lack of empathy that you find in these works that don't make anything happen for you. Now, obviously, art is subjective, and this, you know, has a tinge of hogwash, but you know, I guarantee you, if you practice empathy for your artist and for your audience and for yourself, you will succeed. I'd like to move into graphic design. This is from my company, Quesadilla Mia. I just wanted to show you guys some parts of the intentional design that I did for this logo. Essentially, you know, it's a quesadilla company, but it's like they're folded in half and pressed. So I wanted to have the slices be, you know, the most obvious things, but I also wanted to create a depth to this actual to the actual circle itself, to feel like, you know, like this has the ability to go further than it does at face value. You know, the black and white logos keep it classy, while, you know, rustic lettering was actually a photo of the iron press that we use and that I digitized and put into Illustrator. And then the actual person is, you know, like someone at the restaurant raising their hand. So this has to do with thematic reasoning, and it also feeds back into, you know, what does it mean? The more meaning you can give to something, the more special it is. And in the corporate world, the easier of a sell it is. You know, if you're pitching to if you're pitching to a boardroom and you have lots of meaning and lots of reasoning and lots of feeling behind what you're saying, I mean, you're going to get through that meeting pretty easy, no problem. I'd also just like to point out that the color of the rough line in this, I just grabbed a pre-made theme, and it was blue, and it was really clashing with this like dark blue background that I've got going. So I took that out, I put it into Illustrator, and then I masked out I masked that out of a screenshot. So it's like these little details, you know, like, I don't know if you guys noticed that. I don't know if you noticed that it was different colors. I don't know if you just are seeing purple or if you see it at all, but you know, for me, it feels like a walking stick, and it feels like I'm, you know, using it to get through this and giving it to you to go on your journey. At least that's what I was thinking in my head. I get a little sentimental and a little sappy sometimes, sorry. Now, I'd like to talk about designing for music, and then I believe we can take a quick break. How's everybody doing out there? Are we okay? Good? Solid, solid, solid. All right.
This Wapa was amazing, by the way.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Okay, so hopefully this plays, God. But I wanted to go into the 5 parts of Wada Igarashi, just to explain what I did, why, and how. Now, you may not understand this, but you know, we can talk about how later, I guess. So I'll just play it at first. Oh, good. Here we go. All right, so this was the intro. Essentially, he started off really ambient and slow, and I wanted it to feel like something big was coming, and it was pretty tough to um, kind of draw out the visuals. You know, like, how do you make a visual feel as like as tense as a Wada Igarashi set. But I just wanted to say about this that, you know, the colored spots that you're seeing here, this is actually an inverted mask of a generative top and touch designer that is going to the music, but it is essentially revealing the background. Now it's a little bit saturated, which is why you see the blue on his speaker. But if you notice, like on the left, you'll see a lot of greens in the next on the next animation. Okay, so this song was the feedback of the music coming through my mic too bad, or?
No, actually just enough. If anything, if you could increase that, because we're not getting your desktop audio. We're just getting the music from the
fun.
speakers in your room into your speaking mic.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'll tilt it towards it. So essentially, when that Blah One song came on, I thought that I was going towards, maybe like a more spacey kind of thing. I thought I was going towards a more earthy kind of thing. Wada once had told me that, he wants his music to sound like a tree being ripped apart, like, or, at least a specific song. Like he has that kind of intentional, meaning behind what he's doing. And so, um, just knowing that, I kind of wanted to suspend like that tree being ripped apart, but like in motion for the entire set, which ended up being like 2.5 hours. But if you can see the green coming out here. So essentially, I'm just taking the black and white out, and that it's cool to me. I mean, not saying you got to do that, but that just goes back to my inversion thing. It's really easy to change perspective, to make things feel the way that they actually sound. That this Blawan song really sounds like a surfing song. I feel like I'm in a wave when it's going on. I feel like I'm like, taking my surfboard out on a wave of death. And so, like, I started to create like a sea kind of foam kind of thing going with amber spray paint art, that created kind of a depth. And luckily, he had this great like white wall. And because he was so dark, I didn't even have to key him out. I just did a darken composite. And then I had this, David Braun had recently come out with a like an optical flow particle thing, which you kind of saw in one of my previous in my doodle sketch, where there was like dust coming out of the lines. And I noticed that there, what was creating the dust was these like green and red lines. And I thought, wow, like how, you know it's just enough for a DJ. It was too much for, if you're watching like a video of a roller rink, it would be just nothing but green lines, green and red lines. But for, a Wata and Erica, you're talking about some people who are moving with precision and intention. So you're getting like just these little waves of lines that eventually I learned how to color.
Hey, Ace.
Yes.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. You just mentioned a name, David Blur. What did you just say?
David Braun.
David Braun.
Braun.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. He's got he I mean, his toxes, he creates like patches, he creates all kinds of crazy things. um you know I use his stuff all the time, and I'm not afraid to say that. He puts it all on GitHub for free, and I could not be more thankful to that guy, as well as many others. I mean, the touch designer community is very giving, very loving. All I ask for is like $10 on your Patreon, and pretty much everyone, myself included, if you want to know something, and you have a question about how to do something in touch designer, like you can always ask me. Just hit up my DM on Instagram, and I'll get to it as soon as possible, because like making more touch designers makes our work better, because we're all sharing ideas and how to do things at all times. And that's I think what makes this the touch designer community so much better. Yeah, sorry to launch into that diatribe, but yeah, I just really love David Braun for giving me all these amazing things. Check out his Phasarum. Um, um, that was like one of the first things that I really started to play with and understand how to turn like mathematical equations into like channel operators that then turn into like, you know, um, basically small amoebas that eat the image in front of you like in real time. It's insane. Anyways, um, so yeah, so as far as designing for music, first you got to feel it out. You got to know the music. You got to know like what kind of direction and tone they're going for. You know, I generally don't make too many decisions before I feel where they're at, because sometimes DJs are upset and sometimes they're not, you know, not that professional, and sometimes they just have to just lay it all out there that day. And sometimes they're happy go lucky and they're usually brooding and scary. And so you just, you know, got to feel it out and research the artist. I can't tell you this enough. If you don't know the person that you're doing visuals for, do your research. Just see what mix they came out with last. See where, you know, they've you know, been hanging out on Discogs. See where they're what they bought on Bandcamp. Not telling you to completely stalk people, but you know, just find out as much as you can. And if you can talk to them, talk to them. Find out how their day's going. Find out how, you know, what they think about strawberry pie. I don't know, whatever it takes, you know, as far as research goes, and what you feel like doing. Because the last thing you want to do is, you know, put up visuals during a live stream that do not represent the DJ at all. And you know, I'm not sure if I've done it. I'm sure I have. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't think of anything, but I'm sure that I've misrepresented an artist by the colors, or, you know, not doing enough legwork on how they like things done. You know, some people hate tigers. You throw up some tiger print and it's over. It's like you ruin their whole show. It's food for thought. So essentially, I wanted to show you guys that one because um, there is like Wada gave me 3 different angles. One was a top-down view of his mixer, and one was from the side. And you know, the side one didn't really get good until like the darkness started coming. So I saved that. I saved that shot change until the right moment, until I felt like Wata was at a place where he was going to be taking a step into a more like emotional, like slash like um um yeah, just an emotional like kind of tilt. He ended up going into like Julia Gorber, you know, um, and that was kind of like a down moment, and that was just from kind of knowing how he likes to tell his stories. And obviously it was a complete guess, but it was dark and I felt it, and it worked. As far as this goes, I may have to show you guys how to do this tomorrow. I essentially used a sphere, like a 3D sphere, and I masked and keyed out the rest of his mixer. And it was Halloween, and this really just looked like a Japanese horror movie to me for some reason. I can't tell you why, but like Ichi the Killer or something just kept coming in my head. And there's like these knobs, and so, you know, it just all kind of fit. And luckily Watsu was happy. That was kind of what I was just saying. I'll play this last one.
Hey, Ace,
Yep.
is this video accessible to us? I know
Yeah,
IT posted it on their Instagram, but is there a full set that we could watch on YouTube or something? Is this for the public, or is this?
Not currently.
Gotcha.
We do have plans to release them, and
Please do.
I don't think that we're going to wait as long, and we're not going to extend them out as far.
Cool.
Yeah, so look out for those sometime soon.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If it was my call, I'd just give it to you, but no, I mean, you guys gotta wait. It's so good. But yeah, so yeah, yeah, it's all about matching intensity. Oop. Well, kind of ruined that one. Okay, so essentially, talking about matching intensity, that was the literal last song of his set. It was the end. It was the time to let all of the tension go, and that's why I allowed myself to let the visuals take over. It was also like 3 a.m, so it was time. It was a good time to let go and release, and that I feel was the only time that I really obscured Wata from view. And I hope that you guys take that knowledge with you and try to stay away from taking the DJ completely out of the shot. And I'm guilty of it too all the time, but it's just something to think about and something to work towards. And as we get into things like LiDAR, where we can create whole things based on just the DJ's image, whole like 3D scapes and feelings and voxels and all this new stuff that's coming out, it's good to remember that you don't need to take the DJ out of the DJ's show. Unless he wants that. Unless he wants it. Okay, so this is my last part of this advice. And I just want everyone to remember that when you're doing visuals, when you're the VJ, you are not the star of the show. You're providing a service to a DJ. You're creating something with them, and maybe you all are the star of the show. Maybe the event is the star of the show, but it's not your bag, man. It's just not. You're just, I don't want to say just a VJ, but you are a VJ, and you are secondary to the power of nature, of music. We've been doing drum circles since we could move our hands in an up and down motion, and visuals is something that happened in the 1920s when they found out how to move pictures. So, it's going to be secondary. Now, I hope that someone can make it, I hope that someone can make visuals so good that I don't even want to listen to music. That would be insane. But it's always going to have some component of music. And not only that, but just don't even think you're the star of the show, even when you are the star of the show. Even if it's your name on the marquee, like I have a lot more respect generally for the guy who has to clean the toilet or the porta potties at the festival than I do the face of a whole big group of people that are putting on a show, you know. I do respect the group as in total, but you know, it's the sum of parts. Nobody can do this alone, and you know, you're not an island. And that's the end of part one. So we can take a 10-minute break. Everybody feeling okay? Did anyone have any questions for me before we break?
Yeah, I had a question for you. My name is Miguel. I'm actually Erica's flatmate in Berlin.
Hey, Miguel.
And I just learned about some software called Synesthesia this morning.
Yeah.
And I know this is like Touch Designer and something unrelated, but is that a different path? Is it like different software that does similar stuff, or is it like totally different?
So the fun part about Synesthesia is that it's actually built in Touch Designer and then recoded over. Now, let's say that you wanted to make your own Synesthesia. You could literally do that with Touch Designer with the way that it's customizable. You could take all of those, like, I mean, Synesthesia is essentially a shader toy porter. So it takes, like, you know, shaders from like GLSL and turns them into like a code that a form of GLSL that Touch Designer can understand. And you know, it's super audio reactive, but like it's very limited in how far you can go. And you know, you're going to get a lot further spending your time learning Touch Designer, which is, you know, your foundation of that actual program.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else out there? No? Okay, well, cool. I guess we'll take a 10-minute break. Good, good, good. Okay, so let's say that you just downloaded Touch Designer. You want to do the trial version. The trial version is good for 1280 and 720, basically 720p. You can use it without any restrictions, which is amazing. That's how I got started, and that's, you know, I did a lot of projects without the official version, so don't be scared away by the $600 price tag. When you are, you know, using it for work and you're ready to buy it, it's definitely going to be worth it.
Ace?
Yes.
If we're not there yet, do you have a suggestion for maybe like an open source program that could allow you to play with some projects before we decide we want to spend that kind of money?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Touch Designer's free up to 720p, so you should.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's funny thing, you know, the guy who created Touch Designer, he started Houdini, which is a 3D rendering program like Cinema 4D, and you know, he just wanted to start doing visuals at raves, and that's why he built Touch Designer. So it is 100% like built for VJing, and it's built to be customizable and make it your own. They add new stuff all the time, and you can create stuff in it. I want to do a quick overview because I feel like people who have never seen it before will be lost. When I first open Touch Designer, the first thing I do is switch it from 60 to 30 frames per second. And that's because 95% of what I do is 30 frames per second now that we're in COVID. If you don't know the difference between 30 and 60, it's basically double. But NTSC, which is what most TVs work at, is 29.97 drop frames, which means that most of the people that are viewing your project or your live stream are going to be seeing it at 30 frames per second, regardless of whether you record it at 60 or not. Instagram is also 30 frames per second. So if you're creating just for Instagram, then you're going to want it at 30. Um, you get this cool, intro little guy right here. Let's go through what this is. Okay, so this is a movie file in. You've got a picture of jelly beans. You have a um, a noise wave that's pretty much a random noise. You can actually change parameters up here in the top right corner. Is that blurry for you guys?
No, it's good.
It looks good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so you can change the period. You can just, you can do whatever you want to this noise, and that will feed into this chop to. Now let's say that this wasn't here. You can right click on this little black line in between, and you can, that'll open up the menu, the dialogue, and you can do a chop to top, which is essentially what that was, and plugged into the displays. Now let's go over what these are. So you have different sections. This first section is a comp. It's basically it's like if all of these were inside of their own nest. Let's see, collab selected. This would be a comp. Okay, so you can create those. You can create a base. You can create a container. You can create a geometry comp, which has a torus inside of it, and you can add different kinds of 3D shapes to that from this geometry comp. There's also lighting. There's also ways of bringing in 3D projects from other things like Cinema 4D. There's buttons, sliders, all kinds of things that you can use to make it your own. If you're on a Mac, you won't have this NVIDIA like Flex Solver, but that's not even a big deal. As far as the next dialogue, this is going to be your tops. These are basically how you can generate like 2D images and affect the 2D frames. So if you have, so these are essentially all tops. So if you have a movie file in going into a displace, and then you have the noise going to the chop to top. Now you're using, by plugging this chop to into the second input of the displace, you're displacing the movie file in by the noise. And that's essentially how I got that wavy like motion of Amber's photos and textures and stuff for the No Way Back stuff. And I don't know why this isn't like already something you can just select, because I want to use a displace all the time, but they don't have it like in any of these components. So I'll show you that real quick. Over here, you have your palette. Your palette can be hidden with this little guy right here, closed palette. That becomes useful when you have a smaller screen and you need to hide that. And if you need to hide the parameters, you can press P, and that'll give you more access if you have a smaller screen. You have generators. These are essentially comps and tops. If you wanted this super formula to go in here, you can just drag and drop it in here. This is actually a SOP, but there are 2D ones as well. So if I wanted this Julia Mandelbrot to be in here, then bam, I got that displacing. You definitely want to poke in the palette and just see what you can see. These image filters are actually really good. It's like having presets that work. It's pretty cool. These can be combined in many different ways. to create something new by themselves. They're kind of what everybody uses, like this feedback edge. It's essentially a feedback with kind of like a wavy displacement already to it, and it creates, if you go too high, excuse me, if you go too high on the edge strength, it creates these like really cool little waves. Um, I would advise you to stay away from this look because literally everybody does it. Like, oh, touch designer, I can use it, and then they do these things. This looks kind of cool, actually. Of course, it's like you don't. I try not to disparage things too much, but as far as the edge comp, if you keep the source gain low and the edge strength low, the scale can only go plus or minus 0.003. So if you go any further, you're talking about a whole lot of feedback. And if you go any further to the left, you're talking about it going backwards or away from you, which is cool if you need that effect. But for the most part, you're going to want to stay like 997 or 0.003. You can also blur the feedback. And let's see. The dry and wet mix, if you're not familiar with audio, this is essentially on and off. Dry is no effect. Wet is everything that you're throwing at it. You typically want to have this off just a little bit so you don't lose your image. And yeah, that's the feedback edge, and that's just one of these guys. You've got a convolve, which would then like change these jelly beans into something else, which basically takes all of their colors and does the inverse of them, but also excludes the background. And you have like an RGB delay, which I use quite frequently for different parts of my feedback. And yeah, just to go through, I love how good these presets are because you can do so much to them. You can just do so much to them. I will often do a dent and then have that dent go to the beat of the music. Yeah, so moving on in the palette, there's ways to map, like projection map. Oculus Rift, if you want to get into like creating, you can create a video game in this. You can create a whole world inside of this. Point clouds, essentially you're taking data from like a Cinema 4D object or a SOP within Touch Designer, and you're adding points to every vertices, which then creates kind of like a it could be like a waterfall effect or a snowfall effect, or it's when you see like the locust in the wind kind of like look. That can get really complicated, so I'm not going to do that right now. Real Sense is LiDAR, which I was talking about a little bit earlier. LiDAR is the future. If you want to be ahead of the game, get into Real Sense or Connect, because as pretty soon we're just going to be able to do our streams in LiDAR, and people will be able to project them into their house. You'll be able to like be standing next to the DJ in like 3 years. So getting on the ground floor with Real Sense or a Connect or some form of LiDAR. Even the iPhone 12 has LiDAR. I haven't seen if that works with Touch Designer yet, but with the Touch OSC protocol, it might be possible. I haven't gotten one yet. You have TD Ableton, which is an easy way to patch into Ableton and get individual sounds or individual tracks straight into Touch Designer to do more precise movements. Like generally when I'm doing a stream, I'm just taking the highs, mediums, and lows, and then bending those curves to get the look that I want. So if I had 26 tracks of every track for a whole set, I could have so many more things going on. So if there's any musicians out live set with all of the tracks, I'm totally game for that. TDVR, I don't actually, I have not explored that enough. I mean, it has stuff to do with different, a lot of components you'll see in here are for specific programs. Like if there was a drone, like if this Mavic had like a way of patching in the touch designer, it would work for that. But obviously you're not gonna be able to use it if you don't have one. These techniques have their own, things as well. Connect point cloud, just like I was talking about. Leap, there's a leap motion, which is basically just like a small sensor that you can put your hand over the top of, and it'll move with your hand. Like you're basically controlling like a mouse with the movements above your hand. I've seen some really cool stuff that my friend Nyx has done with her visuals where she goes over the top. It's pretty awesome. And then tools, you'll find a lot of things as you like start progressing into your style. Like for me, I use the audio analysis quite a bit. I'll probably go into that next because that's just fun. And like an arc ball geometry, an arc ball camera. This gives you easier ways of, controlling your camera. And it basically sets all this stuff up for you. Normally, if you wanted to, let's say I wanted to throw a sphere like I did with WADA, I would have to go to this SOP. I'd have to get a sphere.
Quick question.
Quick question, go ahead.
Yeah. So earlier when you were talking about plugging in the music to that second feed and you're displacing, does that mean like the video will go to the beat of the music? Is that what you mean by displace?
That's what I meant, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. I'll show you that in just a second.
Awesome.
So if I had this sphere, I would have to plug it into a geometry. Also for newbies, definitely type what you're looking for when you know what you're looking for. Like I'm looking for this geometry. It's so much easier to just type geo and hit enter than it is to constantly be trying to hunt and peck. I mean, you can take down the time on how you do things just by typing. I forget all the time, but hey, cool. So then you'd also need a render top, which you don't connect. And then you'd also need a light and a camera. Now, if you hold shift while you're selecting things, you can select a camera, you can select a light, and then you don't have to go out of the menu to come right back into it. So now we've got our cool little sphere here. We can change the light color to change the color of the sphere. You have to look at it like if this was the sphere, you're placing the light where you want it to hit off of, and how intense you want the light to be. If you want to get really good really fast, focus on lighting in the beginning. It's something that I routinely skipped when I first started, and now that I've gotten lighting down, it's so much easier to do things that look less cheesy. If you look at this, if this was white, this is, just kind of normal, it's bland. But if you can get like some cool like shots off of that with the light and changing the color and mixing it with that, then now you're talking about something that's, a little bit more interesting. So now that I've gotten the sphere, put it into a geo, gotten the light, gotten the camera out, hooked them up to a render, now I can combine this with the out by compositing. So I right click onto the out and type in comp. And so it's going to hook up to this first one, and then it doesn't have like a second input here, but you can just hook it right into the same one, which is essentially saying like, I have object one, I have object two. They're going into the same space, but I'm taking both of their images and compositing them on top of each other. Am I going too fast? Is there too slow? Everybody okay?
I have a question.
Yep.
I have a question as well.
Yep.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so what exactly does the render box do in the context of everything? Like, why is it that you added the render? What would happen if you hadn't added the render?
So you could not see the sphere in the tops, and the tops is where you're going to be combining things. That's basically how you're going to get to your out. Like if you're going from this comp to a null to a movie out, like a movie file out. If I wanted to take a picture of this, I can do it because it's been rendered. If I wanted to take a picture of this sphere right here, just in the SOP, you can't do it. It just doesn't work like that because the movie file out is a top. It's a different kind of operator. So you have to convert it somehow from being a real-time generated object to being a 2D image.
So do you render all geometry basically?
All geometry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anything that's being generated 3D in Touch Designer will need to go to the render top. You can do more than one render top also. And the way that you can change what render gets what, see, they have this geometry right here. And this is a star. So if I put in Geo1, it's only going to do Geo1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So you've got Geo1, you've got this one that's rendering both, but let's say for its own sake, Geo2, and then you can combine these in fun ways, like adding in a transform comp. And so now I can make this bigger. If you, so, like for something to point out on the scale, if you have one, you have two. For any of these parameters, to change them, all you have to do is click on them and hold them down, and that'll give you varying, millinumbers to be able to move in whatever direction that you want. All you have to do is click on it, hold it, and then hover above what parameter you want to go by. Everyone know that? No? Yep, good. But also, instead of going to just one box, two box, you can just hold it on the actual scale button. So now we're talking about being able to expand the X and the Y at the same time, which is useful under pressure. So now I've got a cube. Now I've got a cube sphere that I can do things to, and we can throw it back over here. We can make this a lighter color. We can make this a burn color. We can composite this in so many different ways. What I typically do is I hook up like my MIDI controller to this operation, and then I'll just like spin the knob from 1 to 46 until I get to what I want. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. I want to do audio first.
I got a quick question, Ace.
Go ahead.
Is there a way to display one of these windows in full without having, I see you're zooming in. Is there a way just to like preview capture a certain effect, like the movie file out, or even the render?
I'm not sure I'm following.
Isn't there like a blue
Oh, right.
circle?
Yeah. So let's say you wanted to see what was going on. I was just going through stuff, but
Yeah, as if you exported it.
right. So if you go to your palette and then you go to the top of the palette, you'll see pane layout, and you have like what we're in right now, which is a full single window. You have a split to the right, and then you have a split to the top, double split, and quads. I never use anything but these two ever. It just seems to, well, no, if I'm doing keyframing, I'll do the top and bottom because it does make it easier to have like a timeline be lengthwise across the screen. But as far as this guy goes, if I want to see this null, and by the way, always do it on the null. Put a null next to your movie file out at the end of the chain, and don't touch these for the rest of the project. So you got your null on. Now you're seeing two. Now you're seeing double. So on the right side, you can go to this little pane type, drop that down, and then go to top viewer. And top viewer basically just only shows what is checked off in blue. So let's say that you had this one checked off in blue, it would have both of them. Okay, so now we only got this. We don't have the network editor. We want to get rid of this. We're going to right click anywhere that's not on a top and go to display backdrop tops. And that'll take that out from behind you. So now you've got the best of both worlds. You're looking at what you're doing, you're watching what you're creating, and you're also able to go into the network editor. Cool. So let's get some audio going. Let's see. Okay, so you want to go to tools whenever you're doing something in audio, unless you have my audio analysis talks that I'm going to share with you guys in a bit. You would go to, if you're starting from scratch, you want to go to audio analysis. And this basically has kind of everything that you need to get the levels for the low, medium, and high frequency ranges, and then also kick, snare, rhythm. Rhythm is basically kick, snare, and hi-hats, depending on how sensitive you want to make it. Inside of this thing is a whole network that you can check out on your own. It's essentially a series of, I guess, like filters to create a chain that would only produce lows. And there's definitely ways that you can make things better in here. There's like, you can change the filter type within the audio filter to, let's say you wanted this low pass, but you can do a logarithmic low pass, which will then give you like more of like the peaks and valleys within the peaks and valleys. And then that filter resonance, you can kind of drop in to smooth it out a bit. But you can go through all of these different filters and you can change their parameters to kind of fit where you want. Just don't change any that have like if it's blued out, it's probably going to be like if this one right here says parent, because that's the snare threshold of the button of the container up here. So if you take that off, you won't be able to control it with this anymore. All right, so let's get a song in here. that's not what I want. So you're going to do, you can do an audio file in to get a song playing. It has a standard song playing, but I'm going to play a song that I found has good percussion. Oh boy, maybe not. Okay, now let's say you want to hear this thing actually. You're going to go to audio device out. Is it pretty faint? Is the audio pretty faint?
It is faint, but we could hear it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a loop, so it might get annoying. So I'm actually just going to turn that off for now. But you guys know it's there. You heard what it sounds like. You plug the audio file into the audio analysis, and then what you can do is right-click on the outside of the audio analysis and create a null. And now that null is showing you all of the different parameters that this thing is controlling. So you have your lows, your mediums, your highs, you got your kick, you got your snare, you got your rhythm. Like, let's say this rhythm is not really, is doing a little bit too much here. Well, that kick is kind of slamming, but so you can still turn down the rhythm threshold or turn it up so that it reacts less. The lower that you go on the threshold, the more sound it's letting in through the gate. Okay, so how do we make this dent bump this spear? How are we going to do that? Now, we're going in here, we got our dent. We know that the width and the height affect this in different ways. If you watch the width as it comes into the middle, so this is like the pure dent, which is really just like a cross and an overlay. But as it expands, it creates like a pushing, right? So what do we want for the width of the Y values? I generally like a low. I want the low to kind of push it. I want the kicks to be pushing that. So now that I've got that, you see how it's kind of pushing it out?
Could you throw that dent up on the display on the right?
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
No problem, guy. All right, so there we go. Now we're talking about a dent that's being affected by the audio. And let's say that I want to have the hi-hats be on the width of the X values. Right? This is a little chaotic, but we can turn down the dry mix. And now we've got kind of like a Plastic Man little thing going on. Now, basically, any of these parameters can be controlled by any of these. All you have to do is drag them onto it and do it, right? If you want this dilate, if you want it to only come on the kick, then you can do the kick into the dry and wet, and then every time the kick goes away, then that dilates out of there. And you can also so let's say that this width of the X values for this high is too much. You can just straight up divide it by 2. You can divide it by 100. You can multiply it you can do complex like algorithms in this part, and this is where, you know, this is where the coding, quote unquote, part comes in, because you can add stuff to it. You can you can multiply it by 2 and then subtract 1 if you wanted. Like there's an endless amount of creativity that goes on in all of my you know, where my sound is hitting. I'm sculpting what I'm seeing by multiplying or dividing it by numbers that make sense with the song. Does that part make sense? Let me know when you guys are have any questions or.
Could you just go briefly over, like, I guess the order in which the audio operators need to be connected, and like which one connects to where in the visuals, I guess?
Uh-huh. So you're bringing in your audio file in. You're grabbing the audio analysis from the tools. You know, if you want to hear it, you're going to do the audio device out, which will go on its own chain, because if you put it in the middle of the audio analysis in that, the audio analysis will not read it, because this is going out to your speakers and will not be going through to the audio analysis. But yeah, so you have your audio, you have your audio analysis, you have your null. Your nulls are just showing you the information that are passing through it. They don't do anything. They're not actors in the chain. So once you have that set up, when you do have to click on this little guy. If you're like trying to click on the low, getting frustrated, you gotta kick this little plus. And then once you're on the plus, then you can put that into any parameter that you want. If I want the uniform scale of this sphere to be right on the low, now I got that. If I want it to be bigger, I'll multiply it by 2. If I want it to be just a white screen, basically, I'll multiply it by 50. Now I've got a strobe.
Hey Ace, that was cool how you just like backed out and showed everything with the audio and how that connected. Can you kind of do that with everything we're looking at? Is that a high ask?
Say that again.
Like, just go through it like you just did with that audio. Just kind of look at everything that you did and just look at it through a more beginner's eyes for a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so initially we started with the movie file in, displace, chop to, and noise. That was the first thing we started up with. We messed with the noise because that's the first thing you want to do, is mess with parameters. Parameters is where it's at. The noise is a channel operator, which means that it's using sine waves, and it's using basically like wave data and numbers to create you know, waves that can be read by other tops. And so like if you have this jelly bean and you put it into this displace, which is an effect, you add it to the displace, you add the noise to a chop to top so that it can read it. And then you're plugging that into the displace, which is then showing you the wave. Can you see the wave? Is that Rachel?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. So then, this is just basically how to mess around with this. You got this going on in the beginning. You can go to your tools or your image filters, and you can just start bringing things in and just connecting them into the chain and seeing what they do, like this change to color. Let's say I want to throw this one in there. So now I've got different colored jelly beans. Now, what if I want to make the colors, go with the beat, right? So then I'm gonna want to bring in the audio, the song, the audio analysis, and the null, so that I can start using these numbers to affect the colors. So I've got the colors here. And then I can just start throwing these on top of this. In whatever fashion that I feel. Now, this is obviously crazy. So I can divide all of these. I can take, so what I did was tell it that this null operator, this operator null 2, right? Right here, null 2, is going to be, this is the code basically, is the operator null 2 and the parameter low is now giving that a number to correspond with how much, like these are basically red, green, and blue. So it's basically saying if 1 was all the way red and 0 was black, that's how much red it's giving it. So you're looking at anywhere from 0.1 to 0.9 of red, which is why you're getting a whole lot of red in this spot. Just clicked it off. Chop reference. Also, I mean, it's just my preference, but I like chop references instead of exports. An export kind of does the same thing, but it's very set in stone. You can't add to it. And that kind of takes away a little bit of freedom for me. So I don't really use the chop export. If you ever get caught in here where you accidentally click on this and it takes out that parameter you just spent an hour trying to get to, you can just click on the expression and it'll come back. These little boxes correspond to different forms of what the operator is reading. So you can have just the constant, you can have just the expression, the export chop, or a parent. Parent would be like how the audio analysis, how this controls that.
How did you pin your output to the right side of your screen?
So I can go all the way back on that one. Okay, so if you had, oops. Okay. So this is where we were before, right? So if you want that output, you're going to, actually, it would even have this backdrop top. So let's say this is what you're looking at. You're going to go up, you're going to go to your palette, you're going to go straight up to pane layout, and you're going to be able to select what your flavor is. So if you want this to be split screen like this, click the split screen pane layout, And then there's a little drop down arrow that says pane type. And you can change the whole thing to be a top viewer only. So you're only looking at the blue marked top. And then on the left side, to get that from behind, you're gonna right click on the grid and then go to display and then uncheck backdrop tops. You can also save this as a preference, so it opens that way, I believe. So like, let's say you wanted this to be the custom file that starts when you start, then you could save this into your derivative file. Sure, why not? And wherever you save it, and then you can do custom startup file, and then you can just grab that new project that you just created and save that. And I believe it will just start up. 1 second. All right, so now that's my default. Does that make sense to everybody?
Could you go over how you put in audio again?
How you bring audio in?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you, let's say this audio file was in here, essentially, audio is based on waves, right? So if you think about, what kind of operator takes waves, well, then that's going to be the tops, which are the chops, which are the green one, right? So channel operators are waves, essentially. So then you're going to bring in your audio file in. You could also do audio device in. Let's say if you were doing a live thing and you could plug straight into your computer. You could take the audio file, audio device in from your interface, but that's neither here nor there. So you can have your audio file in. It's going to have its normal file, and all you have to do is click this plus, and then that'll open up your Finder so you can look for music that you want to grab.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question that's kind of more high level. Like, let's say you have been messing around in Touch Designer, you've made all these cool, awesome visuals. Like, how do you take those and translate them to VJing with them? Do you pre-render them all, or are you like
No.
using Touch Designer live while the set's going on, or?
So number one, rendering takes a long time, and no one has time for that. Don't ever do that. You can create everything. You can generate everything as you go. When I started with No Way Back, I believe it was about this many operators. you know, and then I just built things while it was going, you know. I heard songs, it gave me an idea, and I made something new. Um, as far as VJing, you're gonna want to get a MIDI controller of some type. You know, I have my trusty Nano controller. Um, I would like to switch to an APC 40 at some point, but like this, the MIDI works like right when you plug it in, it already has a preset for it. And that is so useful that I'm okay with just having 9 faders and 9 knobs, because it's like I can um, I can combine faders and make cool things anyways. And so it's kind of like the Beatles with a 4-track recorder. Like I just, you know, it forces you to be more creative. Like more is not always going to be better. But as far as like MIDI goes, um, I would definitely recommend, and I'll download this so I can like send to you guys before I leave, is the Zerer. Um, let's see. Okay, can you guys see this website that I'm on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to just grab this right now, you can go to 404zerer.com. And if you're there, download the Zerer Talks. And this works very similar to Touch Designer in that you can have like, I think it's like 6 knobs and 6 like buttons going, and that's free. But if you want to pay for it to have unlimited buttons, it's $50. But I'll show you really quickly how that works. Essentially, you grab the Zerer. You have to have like a MIDI in map. I believe it needs a math. It's 0 to 1 to 0 to 1. And then I'm pretty new to this Zerer thing, so forgive me for not talking this out.
Is this to map your knobs to parameters? Is that what it's for?
Essentially, yeah. But it does it in an interesting way, because you can basically like hit this plus once you have parameters, and you can basically set a preset, and then you can just shift between presets. Like the preset will be on, and it'll be like, you know, it'll be this, and then you can use one knob to switch to a completely different preset. And there's also going to be some transfer in the middle that will look like a completely different look. Does that make sense as to why that'd be useful?
Yeah.
But yeah, when you do MIDI map, the MIDI maps are in the dialogues up at the top. You have to do create a new mapping. Select your MIDI. Oops. This thing's been giving me troubles. Haven't figured out this bug yet on my end. But I can go over to here. Is it Akshay?
Yep, that's me.
So yeah, so when you do have the Zero set up, you have your MIDI in going, you have a math going. There's like a whole tutorial on that website on how to set it up. It's kind of laborious, but when you do have it set it up, then you can then you can take things. So like, let's say I want this dry wet mix for this feedback edge on here. And I want to set this to a MIDI. All right, so now I can hit plus and drag this down. And basically every setting the way it is at the bottom of this. And I set this to a knob. And so now if I have this up, it's going to be green. And if I turn it off and then I move stuff, I can go back to, oops, what? That didn't work. Sorry, I'm not a pro at this. I think you have to select them all, sorry. Strange.
So would you be switching between like multiple scenes or presets in one project file?
Yeah, I mean, essentially you'd be switching between different parameters setups. I'm not sure why that's not working.
So like if you wanted to load a new, like, let's say you've been playing one thing and tweaking the parameters for a long time. Now you want to switch to something else entirely. Do you open up a new project file, or do you like have them all loaded in the same file that you switch between?
You want to have them loaded in the same file.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do everything contained in Touch Designer. You definitely do not want to switch between files because it'll take your frame rates down. It will cause issues where, like, if I open this same kind of file, the video would stop and the whole stream might go down. I've seen crazier shit happen than that. My whole iMac straight up melted down because I had two open. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, you can keep everything self-contained. What you want to do, if anything, is, by the way, to select everything, you can right-click and drag. And once you have everything selected, you can then right-click again and do collapse selected. So now I've got everything in here, right? And I can just turn that off. Did that one make sense?
I feel like I'm not going to leave from this seat for a while. I'm just like messing around with this little thing.
Welcome
Like,
to
what does
my
this do?
everyday life.
What does this do? What does this do? Right now, I'm just recreating like a shrooms high.
I mean, just the simplest things. Plugging them into each other is crazy. I mean, like for me, I've started to build and save all of these toxes over time. So I have like a bunch of them. And, if I'm feeling like I got writer's block or whatever, like I'll just start dropping them onto each other. I'll just put a whole bunch of them in a row and just like see what happens. Because it doesn't matter, man.
I'm confused about the geo, the shapes. So like when you open Touch Designer, there's that cube that gets generated. So like what is that doing? What's the point of having that?
The geo, honestly,
yeah.
I haven't figured that out. I believe it's
Cool.
just to show that you can reference a geo with a top.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
Actually,
it ends up just being a 2D figure anyway, so I don't understand. Like you don't even have to render this. It's like it's just showing you that you could do a texture by creating a mat from the input and then putting that on the box, and then that's what you're looking at as the box, but the actual output is a 2D cube, square, rectangle.
I've a bit of a question just about like how to read the network. So you have the strings, obviously, which are connecting operators to operators and whatnot, but those arrows, what do those mean? Are those just saying there's a certain parameter that is modulating this?
So
essentially,
this actually comes in really handy when you've got a crazy rat's nest like I normally do. Like, I'm trying to figure out what is being affected by the kick, like what is like causing me to like go into anaphylactic shock right now. Like what is this thing? And I'm going to all the things I think it is, and it's not. So I would just go to the audio analysis null, and then you can just follow the arrows to see where they land. See how this one lands there? So now you can like.
I think so. Your camera and video are frozen on my end.
My camera and video?
Yes.
Tight. Back.
Is it just me?
It might just be you. I think it looks fine to me.
No, I'd switched over, so it should be back.
Your Zoom camera is fine, and your display is fine as well. Nice.
Nice.
Yes.
So you follow me here? You're just following the arrows to see where they're going. So if you get lost, you can actually find out where they go.
For another question, there's that comp. I think it's a comp 1 down at the bottom right. It's got 3 inputs. Is there any sort of hierarchy that Touch Designer uses to figure out what to modulate what with, or in what layer?
Yeah, so when you click on the comp, see these arrows? This is showing you the pecking order. So you've got the comp 2 at the bottom, which is this. And then you've got the transform at the top. So if I want the comp 2 at the top, I can just put it there. See, watch as it cycles through the connections. See how it moves them for you? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that goes right back to what I was saying about compositing and inversion. the more inputs you add, the more possibilities there are for inversion, the more possibilities there are for, a stencil or a subtract to create something new.
How do you take your like video output and route it to a stream? How do you connect it from Touch Designer to whatever streaming service you may be using?
I mean, if you're using OBS, which you should because it's easy, you're gonna want to download NDI, like the NDI tools. That it's like a free download online. Can you see my webpage?
Yeah.
So I think everyone should just grab these NDI tools. So I'll probably just include them in a file in a second here. But essentially this gives you an NDI out. So if I had OBS open, so like I could do an NDI out straight from this null. Open up OBS, add an NDI source. I think this would need to be called something else. But yeah, it's as simple as that. I mean, you basically just download the NDI tools and then do an NDI out of Touch Designer, and you're good. You can also do the audio into that from the NDI, and you can also, but I generally do, especially when I'm doing like a live stream with like Mike Servito where I'm doing a screen capture. I will do a whole second computer.
What do you mean by screen capture?
I'll have to show you that. But just to finish my thought, I would use a whole second computer for the audio, because then if Touch Designer crashes or something goes wrong, the music doesn't stop.
Party don't stop.
I almost said till I walk in. That doesn't work. Okay, so let's say you want to do a screen grab. So I'm going to replace this movie file in with, who asked that question?
That was me.
Akshay?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going, oh, I love recursion. Uh-oh. Strange. All right, so here's a fun problem. How do you do this? Because what's going to happen? That's not going to work. I cannot put you into the screen that you're looking at.
So would you be screen grabbing the artist's video feed? Is that what
That's,
you are?
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. I can do it over here.
Are most of the streams you do pre-recorded then with the, I guess, like the artist's video?
It's like half and half, honestly. I've been doing a lot of in-person ones, like with OMRS and the live ones with Mike, and like I did Underground Resistance, like in person. Shigeto's were both in person.
So you'll be the person that's actually streaming from OBS on your computer, and you'll have their video input as well as your NDI input that is being sent out to wherever you're streaming.
That's correct.
Let's see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically just taking a screen grab and putting it into Touch Designer and then putting that into OBS by NDI.
What is the chop that allows you to, is it audio analyze? Is that the one?
What?
So I've put in a track in the network, but I'm just wanting to pull up that like audio analyze. I forgot what it's called. Is that ringing a bell? Oh, is it? It's just analyze, isn't it?
It's a component in the palette.
Right. Yeah, it's under tools. Mm-hmm.
Aha! Yes. Good man.
All right, this should work better now. Always keep an eye on your frames per second, by the way. I'm gonna share my screen. So you see where my mouse is at the top here?
Mm-hmm.
See how I'm dipping into 29? I mean, I've obviously got a whole lot going on. 29 is not terrible. I'm not going to cry about it. I won't even cry about 24 frames per second because at least that's still like what cinema movies are at, you know. It's just less frames. But anything under 24 or 23, you're looking at distortion, you're looking at missing audio sync, and just a lot of issues the longer the stream goes on. Although I have done a whole bunker stream with like 17 frames per second by just making the feedback go long enough that it just looked like everything was a little bit bigger. There's ways around it, but it's not something you'd want to do.
Could you possibly demo the
Screen grab?
Ableton tools along with that?
Yeah, I can do that. Did you want me to do the screen grab at all?
Yeah, that first, please.
Okay.
So just to clarify, your screen grab is input into Touch Designer, and then Touch Designer is outputting the NDI that has them both combined, or is the screen grab and the NDI two separate inputs to OBS?
No, the NDI is the only input
Okay.
going to OBS
Got
from Touch Designer. The screen grab is just a top that I'm going to open up right now. See that in the purple operators?
I see.
Oh shit, I got two open. Screen grabs are heavy on the old computers,
Makes sense.
especially until you get them. You gotta crop them. So like we're looking at you guys up here. So basically, you just take the bottom, go all the way to where you're trying to crop. And this gets kind of dangerous in here, like Miguel. You're going to want to do a resolution on the edge of this at the end of the screen grab, just because, you know, these numbers can be kind of off, and it's kind of difficult to get things like exactly dead on. So if you just do a res for what you're actually cropping, do a high quality resize and change the resolution to 1280 by 720, then you're at least guaranteeing the output to be at the right size.
Okay, so you're telling Touch Designer, hey, only look at this thing, but make sure you're looking at it
But then
in its best
once
form.
once you've got what you're looking at, expand it or contract it until it gets into the box that my system is used to.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Cool.
Because if you're
That's
on
useful.
716 by 1024 or something ridiculous, and it's even if it's just a hair off, when you start going through different patches, it will you'll get like jerky, bubbling, kind of like overlaying stuff and artifacts for no reason. And I'm gonna disappear. Eric is gonna play.
Is there what's a shortcut for deleting strings? Is it, I've been right clicking, but is there a quicker way?
What'd you say?
Is there a quicker way to delete strings other than right clicking and boom, boom?
I mean, you can just grab it and pull it out of the in, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can grab it from here and move it, and it'll go away.
That's sick.
There's a million ways to save a cat in this thing.
Man, they're really thinking when they made this, huh?
I mean, I really don't think so. I feel like they were in a constant state of flow of thinking, like, and they just kept adding stuff, and then everything just, because they have like a set, you know, language and rules and way of doing things, everything just keeps plugging into each other. You know, it's like it's genius. But yeah, I feel like they just like they're just like, hey, I want to do this now. I mean, that's as much as they told me, like in person. They're like,
that sounds about right.
He's like, I wanted to, he's like, I wanted to have a geometry in a top. So I called the engineer and I was like, hey, let's put a geometry in a top. And he's like, why? How? And he's like, I don't care, just do it.
So maybe they were like trying to improve Houdini, and then they're just like ended up with this.
No, it was definitely specifically so he could DJ at raves.
Sick.
Very dedicated techno denizen. This is fun.
Damn. Okay, so then basically, if you were to output this onto a stream or export it as a video, we wouldn't know if you are just playing this video from YouTube or if she is there in person giving you.
I mean, do you see the artifacts? It's pretty obvious. I mean, at least to me.
I can't tell, but I am just looking in through Zoom.
I mean, it looks like a knitted sweater.
But my mom made it. I promise you, it's nice.
I mean, look at the difference between what Touch is doing and what it looks like on YouTube.
So is your Zoom input just switched to NDI now to link it in from Touch Designer?
Yep.
I see. I also have an unrelated question.
No, actually, my Zoom is on Spout. Spout, the NDI wasn't working with Zoom for some reason, so I did Siphon Spout, which is a different program, and it's open source but really finicky. But it works, I guess.
Can you save like a part? Can you and do you do this? Like save a part of your effects chain and reuse it in multiple subsequent projects?
Say that one more time.
Can you save like maybe just a part of your effects chain and then reuse that in like subsequent projects?
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the palette. So when you have your palette open, there's at the bottom, it's called My Components. And what you can do, so like for me, like this is my audio analyzer, which I have like a kick count and a snare count and a rhythm count added to the chain. So what I did is I just like selected them all, right clicked inside of the grid and did collapse selected, which gave me this this base, which I then named audio analyzer. And then you go up to My Components, right click on My Components, do browse folder. And then that'll bring up where your palette is. And then all you have to do is do save component talks.
Got it.
And then you just, you can copy the location and you can save it to right there. So then, I mean, you do have to refresh it. You have to do refresh folder, but it'll be there.
We don't have to do this, but I think it'd be an interesting exercise, Ace, if you gave us some homework for tomorrow, or just say like, hey, make X video with these kind of effects or this geometry. I think it'd be cool.
Let me think about that. I've got to go to the bathroom. It's been like a couple hours now.
That's true.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be RB. I actually thought about this already. I just have to remember what it was.
If anyone else has questions, also feel free to ask. I'm trying to just ask the most general questions, assuming that like other people are probably wondering these things too, but feel free to ask specified questions. I'm not trying to hog the question space. I'm just trying to ask general questions that like connect the dots, especially for people that may be watching later. But the question space is open to everybody by all means. Anything and everything you're wondering, feel free to ask.
What are you working on in Touch Designer, Akshay? I sent you a video of what I'm working on. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, I was doing just honestly, literally like the first few operators that he introduced right at the start of this whole thing were
Cool.
enough to get some pretty looking things for me. So I just took whatever the default thing was, connected it to feedback edge and convolve,
Yep.
and it's already looking
It's pretty sick, isn't it?
wild. Yes, yes. Anyone else been following along and or want to share? Okay, well,
I know
I'll share.
Noel might have some things cooking over there. It's hiding.
I'm not really doing anything in touch right now. I just thought I would watch and then follow when the recording comes through. However, I also noticed that like a bunch of people here are really new to touch. Sorry, there's a light in my background. Anyway, a bunch of people here are really new to touch. I thought, so I'm just posting some things I found useful when I was starting out. I'm like 3 months past starting out, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw those links. Those are very good. I appreciate those.
Yeah, if you want, I can also link to some YouTube channels that really have in-depth tutorials for beginners, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I think always it's just about there's a guy called Matt Reagan. I'll link to his website. He has like a whole course on touch. It's crazy. I think he's a professor or something, so he just recorded his classes over there.
Matthew Reagan is actually a part of Touch Designer. He's like one of the people that does the coding and stuff. So yeah, he's a major part of the program. But I just put in the chat alltd.org.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, that's gonna be your main resource for tutorials. I've pretty much opened that every day and gone through every tutorial that I could. Now I get to start moving on to LEDs. I got a Raspberry Pi that I'm going to stream it into my infinity mirrors, which I'm going to have those audio reactive and moving like different visuals through those while I perform at Imbue next Friday.
Yes. Perfect. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the next step, is like doing like actual lighting and sculptures with Touch Designer.
Nice. It is past 4. I want to be respectful of Andrew's time and everyone else's time. I think
so yeah, I'm gonna collect my audio talks and my washer machine, and I guess the homework for tomorrow will just be to get the washer machine working. You'll essentially have to learn how to set up MIDI, and you'll have to plug something into it. You'll have to, get audio into it, and you'll have to figure out like what parameters I was controlling with MIDI, and then get those to move in the right way to get the feedback effect. Might be too complicated, but I'll show you tomorrow either way.
Cool. This Zoom is open until 5:30. I think I am gonna stretch my legs for a second.
Cool. I'm gonna drop these toxes in a zip file and put them on a Dropbox and send them into this chat.
Cool. If you can send them to me as well, because I will do an email with the Zoom link for tomorrow, just after this call, and so I can send that as well and say, hey, come to the Zoom, open the zip,
Hey man, you got a marketer's brain on you.
Bada bing, bada boom. 2:45 a.m. That's crazy. No way.
What?
Vimal is from. He's in India right now. That's cool. Okay, so Vimal is in India. Noel is in Uganda. We're in Michigan. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, just in case anyone missed it, we are going to be reconvening tomorrow just to kind of have a open, free-form makerspace for anyone to. I'd say that would be like more collaborative than presentation style. So if anyone here wants to come to that, even if it's just to mess around, feel free to. You're all invited, and we'd love for you to all be there.
Sweet. I was hoping for more questions. I was like boning up on different things just in case you guys asked some random questions, but seems like I got you guys, unless anyone has any questions that are still outstanding.
How do you prepare your bagels? You prepare for that one?
Yeah, I did. I smear both sides and then I cut it in half and then I eat it like a sandwich.
I have a bit of a question. I mean, I had an initial question which I put in the Google form, but seeing how this has gone, I have kind of a different question. I wonder, do you actually like, okay, how do you handle your, do you use external video clips, like when you're taking down, when you're doing like, I guess a live stream, or do you only use generative elements?
I only use generative elements. I only use the image itself against itself.
So you're never in a situation where you have to like build a mixer to like handle external video elements. Like
no,
if you are actually going to.
Touch Designer hates video, so don't ever do that. If you ever want to like mix Touch Designer and video, you would want to use another program like MadMapper or
Resolume.
Resolume. Yeah, you can do a siphon spout out of Touch Designer into Resolume, and then you can use it as like basically like one of the videos.
Okay.
So then you can be controlling both of them, but that's really taxing. So you kind of have to have a good computer. But yeah, if you can, I mean, you go ahead. If you need to do video, that's what. If I had to do video, that's what I would do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I would try to talk the DJ out of it though. It's just so much more fun to create video than it is to play back stuff that's already been made, you know? I'd just rather be creating the whole time versus just launching clips.
Have you ever had to like do projection mapping with Touch?
I have and I haven't. I haven't done it the correct way. I've done it by just blacking out parts of the screen. It was really janky. I just didn't have time to go through the tutorial appropriately. But from what I understand, it's not that difficult.
Oh.
I mean, you can always just black out part of the screen until it's mapped out.
Yeah.
But you know, if you want actual control over it, there is a way to perfectly map it to anything.
Okay.
I have another question.
Shoot.
I am just wanting to take an audio analysis, like the highs from my null from my audio analysis, and I can drag and drop it onto the edge strength parameter. And there's a, oh wait, is it chop reference? Oh, okay, chop reference pulls out the code, and then that is where you can add
that's where you add it, is in the parameter itself.
Gotcha.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay,
you can use, I haven't used so much 7th grade math in my life, but like, it's like PEMDAS, like you just like have put some parentheses on that and put another parentheses on it, and you got multiplication, division, and you're doing all kinds of crazy
No
stuff.
way.
But it's fun to see different algorithms react to different songs,
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Because lows, mediums, and highs, they're going to be different in pretty much every song. So and sometimes even if the parameter is off by like 0.0001, like it could change the whole look. Like with the feedback edge, if it's only 0.003 off, like it's way different.
Yeah, I'm kind of tweaking over here right now, looking at mine.
Oh, you shouldn't do meth, man. It's bad for your teeth.
Official ACE statement: don't do meth. There's one takeaway from the masterclass.
Do not do meth.
Noted.
At least not twice. Try not to do it 3 times. What was next? The audio analysis.
How do I monitor audio I have in the network? Do I have to do an audio file out and then
audio device out?
Is there a list somewhere that describes what each of these things do?
Yes, on every single one, there's a question mark in the parameter at the top towards the name of it.
Okay.
See the help question? And then that'll open up the actual page for it that explains literally everything in all of the parameters. It gets really like wordy and stuff though. Some things are just like, okay, I just read this a million times and I still don't know what it means. But for the most part, it's pretty easy.
Cool. How much Python should someone like learn up?
I'm actually including that in. I mean, Python's not that necessary. Python's stuff like there's some small strings in Python like abs, time, capital T time, dot seconds. Will give you a consistently moving forward number. So there's like, maybe I can do a share screen. Hold on 1 second. But GLSL is where it's at.
Cool.
Well, I hope that this was at least enlightening in some form or fashion. I didn't get to GLSL, didn't get to coding, didn't get to a lot of things, but I feel like you guys all got at least the bug to keep trying to do stuff in this, so it's just great.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. This Cartesian to polar image filter is kind of nutty.
Yeah, I will randomly put that in and affect where it's going, and then mask something else with it. And then you can put on like a kaleidoscope with that. Shoot, maybe I should throw in that kaleidoscope.
Oh, you mentioned exporting for a little bit. Did I miss that, or what was that about? I've had trouble exporting before.
Exporting is definitely
pain.
hard. I'm gonna upload these last two things here. Shit. Sorry, Miguel, I added the extra toxes I wanted to throw in there on top of the zip, but inside of the zip is Apple ProRes RAW, which is really useful for Premiere, and the washer machine talks, and my audio analyzer talks, and one more thing. I threw in a kaleidoscope and a replicator, and there's a whole class with Vincent House on doing GLSL, which is pretty much what I would have been explaining.
Cool.
Okay, let's do a share screen. I'll show you guys how to export, and then I'm out of here. Let me know when you're ready.
I am ready, sir.
Okay. Okay, so I've got my look. I want to export this. I've got this audio file's not gonna work. Okay, so number one, Miguel, if you're trying to output, like let's say you want a loop, right? You have to know how many frames your actual song is. So normally what I do is I would put the AIF into Premiere first, and then I would clip out the length that I want. I would do like 15 seconds. Actually, I'll just do that right now. It's fine. Do you have Adobe Premiere? Is that a thing?
I do.
Okay, so For whatever reason, Premiere is the fastest way to clip a song file for Touch Designer. I don't know why. It just is. It boots up you clip it out and then you export the AIF. So like before Ableton would even open.
Or like Audacity even?
I mean, even Audacity, yeah.
What?
It's just crazy fast. I don't really understand it either. I didn't go over file structure, nothing. Okay, so I'll throw my AIF in, new sequence from clip. I'm gonna try and find a good spot. I mean, I typically actually count, until I get to the spot that I want, go to the beat drop, count to 16, stop it. For the sake of time, I'm gonna guess. There it is. That's a terrible song to do this with. Oops. Okay, so like just algorithm wise, you really want to be under 15 seconds if you want your video to be like seen. 30 seconds is pushing it. A minute is better be like action-packed blockbuster. And typically 14 to 16 seconds is 16 bars anyway, so it's like that is totally not even 4/4, and I don't have time to do the math, so here we are. I typically will do a like put on the loop. If you don't have the loop, you can click this like little plus right here, and there will be like this little guy that you can just like drag down and put it in. And then you got a loop. Sounds okay, right? It doesn't, but it's fine. Then you can hit X. Oh, you can hit X to actually cut out the loop if you're doing multiple loops. And you can hit Command M for export media. I typically name all of my cutouts with the abbreviation beforehand, clip, CLIP. And then, and then I also changed the timeline to frames. Go to the end. So this one's gonna be 604. And then when I export it, I do clip. .604 frames. Then I just have like a, if I forget about this clip and I want to use it again, like for something else later, then I don't have to like actually plug in the info and find out how many frames it is in Touch Designer. Saves me a step. Okay. Okay, so I always start with the music first because, you can create all you want, but the music's going to change it anyways. Then we bring in the audio file. All right, so another key thing here on the audio file there's play modes, and the play mode sequential means that it just plays and plays and loops, but it doesn't go with the timeline. So if you want this thing to go with the timeline, you got to hit lock the timeline, or this is not going to work. Then you're also going to want to change the frames. Mm-hmm.
Your screen is not shared currently.
What? Dang, why didn't you stop me?
I was sort of following in Touch Designer / looking at the cool thing I was making, but generally following you. I've been able to do it once before, but I think I just got lucky and exported what I wanted to.
It's a pain. I like my way of doing things. Other people have their ways. I think my way is the most succinct. But if you bring the audio, you bring the audio file in. Oops. You lock it to the timeline. You change the N to the amount of frames, 604, which is what we had. And now, this is also, so on the movie file out, so you're going to add the movie file out. You're going to, definitely plug it from the res if you have one. And you're going to name it with the plus here. Put it into, I always have like a TD exports folder. And then there's several different types. You could do just a single image, and you can do, different kinds of movie output. You can have animation, which is a really high quality one, but really large. Photomotion JPEG is pretty much the standard for me now. MPEG-4 is pretty lossy, but that's good for Apple. If you're on a Mac, you definitely want to use MPEG-4 on everything that you like export. And then You also have HAP and HAP-Q. HAP is really big. HAP-Q is so big that I lost Erica's at the end of recording it because it was 250 gigabytes big, large, and that was terrible. But yeah, so photo motion JPEG's generally going to be fine. You also have to make sure that it's, you know, .mov at the end. If you have a .png, it's not going to work. So once we have that, so then what I do is I do file, export movie. This is kind of tricky because like if you leave this file name output here, it'll record it twice basically. But if you just delete like half of it or the whole thing, it won't record. Then I put the movie file out on the top video just to make sure that I have the right resolution. I put the audio chop of the song, the actual audio file in onto the audio chop of the movie out. And that's, you know, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to keep the AIF in Premiere anyways. And then you stop, go to the beginning, hit record, make sure that the end frame on this is right, 604. And then you just hit start. Hey, moving in the city.
Okay, so it just runs through the whole thing and you just stop to wait. Make sure everything's good. Okay, I think I get it.
No, we're not done yet.
No?
No.
Oh.
I have so many lessons for you.
Mm.
Don't make the mistakes I made. So see how I'm moving at 17 frames a second? That's because my computer couldn't handle what I just did normally. So if you just try to do export and then hit forward, you're going to be at 17 frames a second. But by doing export movie, you get crispy 30 frames per second, no matter how janky it would be otherwise. Then don't forget to turn record off. And after you do that, make a habit of changing this number, because if you hit undo twice, you're going to turn the record back on and record over what you just did. So then I save it. And so then I go back into Premiere, because remember we had this perfectly good audio file, right? And I'm using an AIF, which is why I do this convoluted ass method, because I get to keep the sound quality while also getting the crispiness of the 30 frames per second. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I get you.
Okay. So I'm dropping this on here, and unfortunately, for some reason with this method, you get like an extra 2 frames. I know this all seems complicated, but after a while, I just keep doing it. So I got like 3 extra frames on this. So I got to cut those out and then move everything down. Oh God, 4 frames. That seems really bad. That seems off. I got to figure out what's going on with that. Anyway, the audio is close enough. Like if it's half a frame off, that's just because, you know, Premiere would have preferred it to be 29.97, but it's not. That could also be it. Let me check this. No, it's on 30. I don't get it. Yeah. So like in this situation, right, there's a complication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to like nip the last few frames. I'm going to do a clip speed duration, and I'm going to just add a couple frames on the end of that. Oops. but you know, that's to create perfect loops. And so like, obviously it gets more painful. If you're not doing a perfect loop, you don't even need to really go through all that. And if you don't care about AFs, you don't need to go through all that. But if you do care about sound quality and you want it to be a perfect loop,
So when you make Instagram posts, do you go through a process similar to this one?
that is the exact same thing that I do for every single Instagram post.
Damn.
It's annoying, but I know there's a shorter way, but it's so tried and true and it works so well every time, and I get the sound quality and the loop quality that I want. You know, it's kind of hard to like let it go in favor of something experimental to my workflow that may throw off my rhythm when I'm doing like 12-hour sets, or b just get written over or mess up somewhere, because it's like there's so many things that can go wrong in that recording phase when you're doing 3-hour sets. It's like just too much.
Heard.
I've lost like 5 3-hour sets, I think, and it's more and more painful the wiser I get. Oop. Well, cool guys. This has been really fun. I hope that everybody is happy with how this went.
Hell yeah, dude.
Very happy.
This is great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
A lot more.
And anybody who has any questions for tomorrow, I'll be around. I'll try to plan out for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just in case. This is obviously gone an hour longer. But hey, as long as everybody's happy, I'm happy.
Aww. Yeah, so we are having a makerspace tomorrow. For anyone who isn't aware, you'll get a Zoom link and an email you got today from this, or yeah, the Zoom link you got today. It'll be the same thread. Ugh, my brain. Yeah, feel free to pull up with your DAW or your DVW. Is that right? I mean, DAWs are cool because they're called DAWs. Is it DVW? Do we have a cool acronym?
Mm-mm.
What?
No.
Garbage.
There's still there's something.
Well, DVW would make sense, right? Digital Visual Workspace.
I mean, it would be digital video, but video is not the right word.
We'll
I know this one. It's a near linear editor. Is video. Yeah, NLE, I believe.
Flows off the tip of the tongue.
Something like that. I'm tired.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fucking homepage.
Linear editor is what we refer to it as, the videos.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well,
cool. Take care, folks. Take care, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful rest of your night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Uh-oh, I opened my Windows Defender summary. Uh-oh. We got no threats. That was cool. That was very cool. What do you think, Akshay?
I think it was great.